In 334 BC, the ancient world stood on the brink of transformation. From the rugged mountains of Macedonia rode a young conqueror, Alexander, barely 21 years old, yet already a king and a legend in the making. He led not just Macedonians, but a coalition of Greek forces united under his command, bound together by ambition, revenge, and the dream of conquering the Persian Empire, the mightiest realm on earth. Alexander's army was small compared to Persia's vast legions, but it was disciplined, hardened, and expertly led. At its heart stood the Macedonian phalanx, a wall of men armed with sarissas, pikes nearly 18 feet long. Each soldier was trained to move, march, and fight as one living machine of war. On the wings rode the companion cavalry, the elite horsemen of Macedonia, noble-born, fearless, and utterly loyal to their king. Among them, Alexander himself always took the most dangerous position, at the head of the charge. Their first test came at the Battle of the River Granicus. Facing a Persian army drawn up on the opposite bank, Alexander led his men straight into the torrent. The fighting was fierce and chaotic, but his shock tactics shattered the enemy line. The victory was decisive. The Persian forces in Asia Minor crumbled before him. As he advanced toward Sardis, capital of the satrapy of Lydia, the city's commander surrendered without resistance. The keys to the city, and its treasury, were handed over to the young Macedonian king. But Alexander's conquests were not yet secure. Though he ruled the land, the Persian navy still ruled the sea. Its powerful fleets, stationed in bases across the eastern Mediterranean, threatened his supply lines back to Greece. Rather than risk everything in a naval battle he could not win, Alexander made a bold decision. He would destroy Persia's naval power from the land. He marched his army to the fortified Greek coastal cities of Miletus and Halicarnassus, both loyal to Persia. The sieges were long and brutal. The defenders fought with desperate courage, and Halicarnassus, defended by the brilliant Greek mercenary commander Memnon of Rhodes, withstood repeated assaults. But by winter both strongholds had fallen. By the spring of 333 BC, Alexander resumed his advance. He pushed through Lycia and Phrygia, claiming cities as he went. At Gordium, the ancient Phrygian capital, he was shown the fabled Gordian Knot, an intricate knot of rope said to have been tied by King Gordius himself. Legend foretold that whoever could untie it would rule all Asia. Alexander examined it for a while, and then, with characteristic audacity, drew his sword and cut the knot in half. The message was clear. He would not wait for destiny, he would seize it. Meanwhile, Memnon of Rhodes, now commanding the Persian navy, launched a counterattack in the Aegean Sea. He captured the islands of Chios and Lesbos, threatening to spark rebellion in Greece itself. But his sudden death from illness ended the campaign, and the Persian counteroffensive collapsed. 18 months had passed since Alexander first crossed the Hellespont into Asia. He had already achieved what no Greek had done before, and yet his greatest challenge still lay ahead. Marching through Cilicia, Alexander reached the coastal city of Tarsus, where illness nearly killed him. After recovering, he prepared to push through the Ner Mountains into Syria. But word reached him that the Persian king himself, Darius III, had finally arrived, leading a massive army to crush the Macedonian invader. Darius maneuvered behind Alexander, cutting off his retreat, and took up position on the narrow coastal plain near Issus, where the land squeezed between mountain and sea. The battlefield, barely 6 miles wide, would limit Alexander's movement, but it would also prevent Darius from deploying his overwhelming numbers effectively. The two great armies faced one another across the Panaris River. Darius's forces were vast, perhaps 100,000 men, drawn from every corner of the Persian Empire. The elite immortals, the king's household troops, formed the royal guard. In the center stood his finest Greek mercenary hoplites. On his right, near the sea, he massed his best cavalry. His left wing extended toward the mountain slopes. Alexander's army, by contrast, numbered little more than 40,000. He placed his trusted general Parmenion on the left, commanding the Greek cavalry and allied infantry near the coast. In the center stood the Macedonian phalanx, steady and silent. On the right, Alexander positioned himself, with his elite companions, Hypaspists, Agrianians, and archers. As dawn broke, Alexander surveyed the Persian line. Darius remained behind the river, waiting for him to attack. But Alexander would not be intimidated. He rode before his men, calling them by name, reminding them of their victories, their courage, and their destiny. Then with a raised spear he gave the signal. The Macedonian right wing surged forward, smashing into the Persian left. The impact was devastating. Persian lines buckled under the weight of Alexander's assault. But in the center the phalanx was struggling. Its long formation had been disrupted by the uneven ground, and Darius's Greek mercenaries were pressing them hard. The Macedonians began to give way. Alexander saw the danger. He wheeled his cavalry, regrouped his men, and with perfect timing, charged straight toward the Persian center, aiming directly for Darius himself. The companions tore through the enemy line, cutting down guards and charioteers. The Greek mercenaries attacked on their flank, broke formation. As Alexander's spear struck forward, Darius lost his nerve. The great king turned his chariot and fled the battlefield, leaving his vast army leaderless. Panic spread through the Persian ranks. On the Macedonian left, Parmenion held firm against the Persian cavalry until the enemy began to retreat. The battle turned into a slaughter. When the fighting ended, the plain of Issus was carpeted with Persian dead. Alexander's commander Ptolemy claimed that his men used the corpses to fill an entire ravine so the army could cross it. The Battle of Issus was a stunning triumph. And among the spoils of victory were Darius's mother, wife and children, captured alive, yet treated by Alexander with dignity and respect. With Darius in flight, Alexander turned to secure the western provinces of the empire. By 332 BC, most of Phoenicia had submitted peacefully, ending Persia's control of the Mediterranean. Only the island fortress of Tyre defied him. Protected by towering walls and a powerful fleet, Tyre seemed impregnable. But Alexander was relentless. He ordered the construction of a massive causeway, stretching from the mainland to the island, protected by two colossal siege towers. The Tyrians fought back fiercely, launching fire ships to destroy his works. The siege dragged on for 7 brutal months, until finally Tyre's walls were breached. The city was stormed. Thousands were killed and the survivors sold into slavery. Alexander marched south, capturing Gaza after another stubborn defense, and entered Egypt. The Persians there offered no resistance. At Memphis, the priests crowned him pharaoh, hailing him as a liberator. On the banks of the Nile, he founded a new city, Alexandria, destined to become one of the greatest cities in the ancient world. Later, he journeyed deep into the desert to the Oracle of Siwah, where the priests greeted him as son of Ammonius, the Egyptian god of the sun. Whether truth or legend, from that moment, Alexander seemed convinced of his divine destiny. Returning east, he learned of rebellion in Greece. In Sparta, King Agis III, with Persian support, had risen against Macedonian rule. But Alexander's regent, Antipater, swiftly crushed the revolt at the Battle of Megalopolis. Agis fell in battle and Greece remained secure. Now nothing stood between Alexander and the heart of Persia. From Babylon to Persepolis, the great king's lands awaited him. Darius sent envoys offering peace, a vast ransom, his daughter's hand in marriage, and half his empire. But Alexander, now certain of his destiny, rejected it. He would not accept half of Asia. He was coming to claim it all.